Hey, friends, welcome back to Joy at Work. I hope you're doing well and I hope you're safe. Glad to be with you again to reflect on what we can do to experience joy at work wherever we find ourselves. Thanks for all the feedback on Truth Over Tribe. I guess we're going to have to make that a bit of a series because people want me to talk more about that, courage, and all of that. So we'll try. It's tough speaking truth to power and developing courage, but hey, it is what it is, and so we'll make it happen. But it just also happens to be that Father's Day weekend here in the United States and maybe in other parts of the world is coming up right around the corner. And this is my first Father's Day without my father. So I've been in a highly reflective mode. Like I'm naturally a highly reflective person, but I've been uber reflective this week as I think about my first Father's Day without my own dad and what that means to me. And it has me really reflecting on two things. Courage. For one, like my dad was a very courageous man. I always think to myself, like any bit of courage that I might have is because I watched my dad speak up in very uncomfortable situations, whether it was professionally or personally. My dad had his value system figured out at a very young age, way before I had figured out my own value system age. Uh, when we think about it from an age perspective, my dad already had that figured out. And so for him, speaking truth, at least as he saw it, and even if he was wrong, was never that difficult because he knew what he stood for. His values were clear. He was always about developing virtue. And so when situations would come up, he would just look at his value system and understand, and he understood that his actions and what he spoke to was a reflection of his value system ultimately. So staying true to his value system mattered. And I saw that he modeled that well for us throughout his life. And so for me, that's sort of where I get that courage, I guess, to be courageous. And now that he's gone, I'm actually even more motivated, I think, in some senses, to be courageous if that's the way his legacy can live on through me and for those that come behind him. So courage is an aspect, and we'll be doing our series on speaking truth to power and courage. But also, as I've reflected on my dad not being here, I've thought about, dying. And I've always thought about dying. Like from a very early age, I just reflected on it a lot. And I used to think it was a little bit odd. But as I've gotten older, I realized like our culture encourages us not to think about dying. But everyone's going to die at some point. So reflecting on dying and death, I think is important and answering the questions about what kind of life do you want to live in whatever time you have between when you show up and when you leave. What do you want to leave behind? Now, some people don't care about legacy, but everybody leaves a legacy, whether you care about it or not, because people are always going to talk about you long, maybe, or short after you're gone. And they're going to say things about you based on their experience with you. So we all leave a legacy. The question is, what kind of legacy are you trying to live or trying to leave, whether it's, or will you leave, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally? So there's that. But there's also what will you do with the time that you have? How then shall we live? It's a big question. And considering we spend so much time in the workplace, what's your work experience going to be like is important. And there are variables outside of our control all the time. I consider that to be just existence. To live, to exist, is to be subject to a whole bunch of things that you just don't have any control over, even in the workplace. But what you can influence or shape or change, there's a question about how committed are you to doing that? Are you just going to be fully carried by the waves of life wherever they take you? Or are you going to, even as you ride the wave, steer, guide, maneuver? All big questions to answer for each individual person. So that's why I talk about joy at work because we spend a lot of time and we've got a beginning, we've got an end, and for many of us, that's going to involve significant amount of time in the workplace. Now, people often say when people are on their deathbed, they never say, I wish I had worked more. I mean, I've never asked anybody that question, so I don't know whether that's true or not. But what I know from my personal experience is that whenever I've changed jobs, or even as the years go by, what happened the previous year, I forget. It really doesn't stick, but I remember people. I remember people, and I remember really how they made me feel, as the saying goes. And I think people will also remember how I made them feel based on their interactions with me. So, long way of saying Father's Day is coming up. A number of things are top of mind for me. But think about courage, think about death, think about dying, and think about what that's going to mean for you and how you want that to influence what you do to experience joy at work. So, sorry if this one's a bit longer, if it's a bit darker, but sometimes those are the kinds of conversations we need. I'll see you next time. Be well. Bye.